My relationship with Larry was very good. He was my son. He is my best friend. And we just had fun together. When Larry was little, I got the impression that he was a fighter because he didn't give up. I got the impression that he was fun because he just loved to laugh and have a good time. First impressions, you know, you got them every day with Larry.
I loved Larry. My first impression, when I met him as a 6-year-old, he was so just good-natured, great sense of humor. He was so much fun to be around. His laugh was just contagious. And just such a good-spirited person. He has a genetic disease called cystic fibrosis, which affects your lungs and your digestive system. And it's a terminal disease that he found out he had at the age of 2.
He did really well with it when he was young. He had people behind him that made him do that, that forced him to do his stuff. It finally caught up with him, and it got bad enough where he needed lungs, needed a lung transplant. And we just didn't get him in time.
I had so many feelings. I think I couldn't believe that he wasn't going to make it because he made it through so many things. Sadness.
Well, I, of course, was devastated. And he seemed so terribly sick to me that I found it very difficult to believe that he would make it. Of course, I prayed he would make it. Just immediate feeling of loss and why him? Just such a good person.
Well, the first thing I thought of when we knew he wasn't going to make it, which was very close to the end, because we had hopes for the lung transfer, or whatever you call it.
Transplant.
Transplant, that sounds better. Well, I guess you transfer it from one to the other, so that we hoped that was going to work. But then I thought, if you're that sick and not enjoying life for 4 months, I feel that he was better off where he was going than being alive and that miserable. And he was miserable. You could see it, you knew it, everybody knew it. So I had a bit of relief in a way for him. Not for us, but for him.
I think about Larry very often. I can't tell you a time maybe when I'm sleeping. There's times I don't. I know during the day there are times when you might think you're not thinking about him, but somewhere you look at something and the thought of Larry comes up, something he's done, something you just remember about him.
Well, it's only been since June. So now we're in, what, 8 months or something. It was always hard getting through the first of everything. The first Christmas, first Thanksgiving, his birthday. No, it's not real easy. It's really hard. I struggle with it every single day. But I do know that he's out of pain and out of the horrible last 4 months of his life.
He enjoyed life to the fullest. He enjoyed fancy things, high dollar things, things he couldn't afford to do but somehow did it. I have no idea. Like his BMW and He loved fancy motorcycles and cars and going fast and living life on the edge, like every day was his last.
We had let everybody know via text, Facebook, however, that we had lungs and that we were headed back up there for a transplant that night at 9 o'clock. And we found out shortly before that, 9 o'clock, that it wasn't going to happen. And everyone spent most of the night thinking that Larry was in surgery. It was supposed to be a very long surgery because it was a double lung. And we found out that he wasn't going to be able to, and we did not let anyone know until the next day. Well, there was one person that I called because they didn't know if once they took Larry off of the ventilator, if he would, how long he would live. So I made one phone call and told someone, and they came up that night. And but everyone else didn't know until the next day that the transplant didn't happen, and that we were now looking to be donors rather than recipients.
If we had to do something like this for Larry, it was what we wanted to do instead of a typical funeral setting, because that wouldn't be something that would be what Larry would want. Celebrating his life with friends and family and memories and stories would be what he would want, and that's what we did. We had our backyard set up where it was all about Larry. We had balloons at a table people could sign and write messages and to be released at a later time in the day. We have a pond in our backyard, a small decorative pond, and around the area we had his urn and pictures of him skydiving, and a table displayed with all kinds of different pictures of him and his friends, and a board that people could bring and put their photos on that they wanted to, that were of them and Larry. And we had a pastor come and speak who was amazing, who was a friend of Larry as well, or knew Larry, and just brought it all together.
After the celebration of Larry's life, we had talked and decided that part of Larry's ashes would be put in the cemetery in Wabena, where my mom and dad are, where I will eventually be someday. And his best friend Wayne would take some down on the Dragon, which is where Larry loved to ride his motorcycle. It's a road through the mountains that has tons of curves, and they just loved it. It went once or twice a year, almost every year. And I decided that I would set Larry free by taking his ashes and skydiving and letting them go while I was skydiving. I'd like to think he's just up there enjoying himself now, without the struggle, without the fight. And looking down on us, saying that, trying to tell us somehow to just move on and enjoy life like he did.